Hey everybody, thank you for being here on this very lovely, beautiful day. We really appreciate it. I met Valerie a couple of years ago. Thank you, darling. When I was doing an article about domestic violence survivors in prison. We actually first met when I went to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which is the maximum security prison for women, about an hour and a half away from here. And we did an interview, which is going to be a little similar and probably not as disruptive as, as we are going to do today. And that was when Val first shared her story about domestic violence and incarceration. She was granted clemency by Governor Cuomo in 2016. She is the third adult domestic violence survivor to have gotten clemency in the past however many decades. So think about that. You know, of all, like we've talked this morning about the number of domestic violence survivors behind bars, many of whom are serving lengthy, if not life sentences. The fact that Cuomo has said that he has a big clemency project and is looking for people to apply for clemency. Valerie applied twice for clemency. The first time she was turned down, and she got clemency in 2016. Had she not gotten clemency, her first parole date would have been
September of 2018.
So she would actually still be behind bars. And as we heard on this morning's panel, oftentimes people who have convictions involving violence often get hit or denied parole over and over and over. So I feel very fortunate that Val is here, but there are still so many other people behind bars that are still kind of waiting for that lucky lotto ticket. So with that, please welcome Valerie for coming on this beautiful day to share her story and talk to us. Can you tell us briefly, in your own words, what you feel comfortable sharing about what happened that led you to be criminalized in the first place?
Okay, I was in an abusive relationship for like 3.5 years. And I did everything I thought was right by contacting the cops and in 96, he attacked me and he tried to kill me. And I called the cops and they locked him up. The judge gave him 7 days. I begged him to give him more time than that so that he can understand that he can't go around abusing, you know, his girlfriends and stuff. But they gave him 7 days and let him go with a 28-week domestic violence outpatient program, which he never completed. But the day that I was leaving, when I was really fed up because I felt that nobody was helping me, I reached out for help. I called the domestic hotlines and I got the same answer. We can't help you unless you could get to us. So, you know, when I just said, I'm tired, I can't do this another year, I said that I was leaving and I was on the phone with my mother, waiting for my mother to pick up the phone so I could tell her that I was leaving. And he attacked me and tried to strangle me. Wait. I'm sorry, y'all. It's just hard for me to talk about it because it brings up a lot of emotion. But anyway, I ran for the door, but he caught me before I could make it out. And he slammed me up against the bathroom door and he started choking me. And I couldn't breathe and I seen my whole life flash in front of me again. And I knew that this time my life was gonna end. But I felt for something to get him off of me. I didn't realize that I had a knife until after it was over and I got my breath and stuff back. But I didn't leave him. I called the cops, you know, and I asked them for help, but I couldn't tell them what my address was and where to come to because I went into a state of shock after I seen the blood. But they, none of that helped me. because the times that I was going to court, running back and forth to court, it took 5.5 years to fight my case. In 2003, I lost trial and the judge remanded me and sentenced me to 19 to life. It was hard, and it's still hard because I still break down, certain parts. My crime happened on New Year's Day. That's when it was on the news. They said that I was the first person to kill somebody for 1998. So it wasn't a good feeling to have your family and your friends turn on the news and hear about you. They wouldn't even allow me to call my mother and them when they locked me up on New Year's Day. But that's how I ended up in prison. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I did 17, 18 years, and I don't want nobody to feel sorry for me. With my whole point of this situation, I learned from it, and I learned more about domestic violence. I learned how the system do, because I really got messed up in the system. I had the paper trail, but none of that did me any good. But my focus is the help of the women and children that's going through it, and ask Governor Cuomo to please look at the women's cases, really look at it, and do more clemency for them too. So I don't want nobody to feel sorry for me, or have a pity party, nothing like that. I did the time. Yes, it messed up my whole life. I wasn't around my grandkids, and I had lost my son in 97, and 2 months later I got locked up. So I never even had a chance to mourn my son's death properly. But I just want help for the women that's in there, and for women that's out here that's going through the abuse. I want the system to change, and that's where my focus is right now, the help of the women and children to not go through what I went through. I've seen a lot, being locked up, and so I just want this to change and for it to be better.
Can you talk about what it was like to spend so much time in prison and also applying for clemency? You applied twice. What was that like?
Well, when I first went to Bedford, I was scared. I was scared when I got locked up because I was actually stepping foot in an unknown territory that I didn't know nothing about. First time being locked up, and I heard stories about prison and what happens and stuff. But when I got there, it was really nothing like that. I mean, I've seen a lot of things that happened with the women in Bedford being locked up, and that just broke my heart. And, because a lot of people don't have family and people that's fighting for them. And I'm glad that, that my family and my friends and people that I didn't even know that was following my case, they were still fighting for me to get released because they followed my case from 1998 and they seen what happened to me. But there are women in prison where they don't have nobody to fight for them. So things happen to them and nobody really cares. And it's not right. It's not right. I've seen a lot of things. And applying for clemency, the first time I applied was in August of 2010. It's real stressful. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of paperwork. You have to get letters from your family and friends outside why they feel that the governor should grant you clemency. You got to get, you have to get letters from the officers was allowed to write letters to the clemency board in your behalf. Your teachers, any staff member inside the facility was allowed to write letters for you. And they did. Everybody wrote letters for me, but I didn't get it. And I said that I would never do another one again. I'll just take it for what it is and pray that when I go to my first board that they will let me go on the first board. But Steps to End Family Violence, they was the one that picked up my case in 1998, the day after New Year's. And Sister Mary Nerney, God bless her, she made me do another one in 2013, but we went back and forth, and I told her I'm not doing it again because it's very stressful, and I can't do it again. With the first one, I actually was breaking down. I was going to Satellite. I was going to OB because it was a lot, and also I was fighting to get either the life taken off the back of my sentence or for them to drop down my sentence to a lower number. And that was real stressful because no matter which way I went in the court, to the higher court, they said yes and then they said no. So I had just lost another appeal before I did my second clemency. And this is why I didn't want to do another clemency. And I asked her, I said, what's the sense of doing another clemency? Everybody knows that you're not going to get it. You know, it's hard to get. So she was like, you're going to do it again. And I said, no, I'm not. And we went back and forth from 2012 up into 2013, and I finally did another one, and I forgot about it. I went on a draft in December of 2015. Right? I went on a draft of December in 2015. And while I was at the Conant in 2016, the superintendent, the DEP, and my counselor from the Conant, they came to see me. And the first thing that came to my head when the officer told me that they was coming to see me, I was like, oh my God, who wrote me a ticket? Secret indicted me, you know. I thought I was going back to Bedford to shoot because I thought I did something, you know. And she was like, Miss Seeley, my officer was like, Miss Seeley, everybody knows you don't get in no trouble. You've been locked up 17 years, and you haven't gotten in no trouble. Why are you thinking? I said, because I don't know. You know, I said, strange things happen in here. So when they came to see me, and the superintendent told me, she was like, first of all, Merry Christmas. I said, okay, same to you. And then she said, I'm like, okay, so she said all of this to say what? Why is this lady here to see me? Is she getting ready to lock me up and stuff? So she was like, would you like to sit down? I said, no, I'd like to stand because I couldn't move because I was still like really stuck trying to figure out why the superintendent and the DEP coming to see me. And I kept looking at my counselor, and all she did was have a smile on her face. I'm like, why is she smiling? She don't know this is serious when the DEP and the superintendent come to see somebody. So the superintendent was like, Miss Seeley, you sure you don't want to sit down? I said, no. When she told me, I was like, huh? She said, Miss Seeley, you got clemency. I said, huh? You know, because I couldn't believe it. It was my second time around, and it was 3 years later. So I was like, okay. All right, so what does that exactly mean, that I got clemency? Am I getting out, or what's going on? So she said, no, you got immediate release because the commissioner from the governor's office called her that morning and gave my name. I was the only one that he asked for, and he told her. So after I realized what she was saying, I was like, oh, okay. I said, so what's going to happen? She said, you got immediate release. I'm like, what? She said, you got immediate release. I said, okay, so what that mean? She said, you're going home. I said, huh? I said, wait a minute. I said, so after, I said, let me see, let's rewind the tape some. I said, so, okay, I've been locked up 17 years already, and I said, does that mean I'm walking out these gates as a free woman? She said, yes, Miss Seeley, you're going home. I said, okay. So I started jumping up and down, and I broke down in tears because I couldn't believe it. Everybody in the yard and on my unit, they all heard me. And once they realized that I had got granted clemency, the girls on my unit yelled out the window to the girls in the yard, and they said, Seeley's going home, she got clemency. And everybody started screaming and hollering. But so I was like, okay. I said, now I got a question for you. She said, what's that? I said, okay, you said I got granted clemencies and I'm walking out these gates after 17 years. She said, yes, Miss Seeley, you're going home. I said, okay, tell me something. I said, can parole stop it or his family? She said, nobody could stop that but the government. It has already been signed. I said, oh, okay. And I really started going off and started screaming and hollering because I couldn't believe that it was actually happening. And, you know, it was really, I was really shocked because, like I was saying, it's a lot of paperwork to do clemency, and you have to really not let it get you to a point where it's going to break you down like it did me the first time. The second time when I did it, even those steps helped me with the first one, but they really had enough time to really put the second one together. So I didn't break down as much as I did, even though with the second one I had just lost another 440 motion. But you know, I just couldn't believe that I was actually going home, and I'm glad, and I thank Governor Cuomo for letting me out, because actually, when I did my first clemency, I know that Governor Patterson didn't really look at my case, because they get your whole case when you're doing a clemency, just like the parole board. When you go up for parole, they already got your whole criminal record. And they make that decision before you even go in there, before the parole board. And the same thing with clemency. I never went in front of parole board with the first clemency or this one. So I'm really glad that they really looked at my case this time. It was a lot of loopholes in my case, and that's what I was fighting for. Okay. Yeah.
And can you talk about the number of domestic violence survivors, other people in Bedford and Taconic that were there because of domestic violence or had suffered domestic violence? So you weren't the only domestic violence survivor in prison.
No, I wasn't. I met a lot of women that's still in there right now today for domestic violence. And even though they had the paper trail, some of them got 21 to life, 25 to life. But after the parole board keep hitting you every 2 years, you're doing more than what they sentenced you to. I knew one lady, she did 33 years for domestic violence, and she just recently came home. You know, and I have a friend in there. She got sentenced to 21 to life. And every year, when it was time for her to go to her first board, they hit her for 2 years. Then when she went back in another 2 years, they hit her again. She's still in prison, and I think this is 28 or 29 years. And they keep hitting her at the board. And I don't feel that that's right, but while I was in there, they were saying that it was a new law out where they can't hit you for the nature of your crime, keep hitting you for the nature of your crime. But that's a lie, because of the simple fact, the reason I'm saying that it's a lie and it's not true, because even though they said that, they just changed the wording in it, but when you really look at it, they still hitting you for the nature of your crime. And I think that's so unfair, because if you did all of this time already and you haven't gotten in no trouble and you've been doing what you was supposed to do while you was in there, I don't feel that they should keep hitting, the women or anybody at the board like that. And my friend is still in there right now, and every time she goes to the board, her godson comes to the parole board hearing, or even he write letters, and he begged them to let her go. Because what she did, oh God, I really feel bad for her, and I'm praying that she get out too soon. But what she did, a guy raped her godson when he was 7 years old. And after he raped him, he cut off one of his testicles and threw it in a dumpster and left that little boy for dead. When they did find him, he stayed in the hospital 2.5 years behind that. And when they went to court and she went, they let him go. They let him go. He didn't do no time for raping and almost killing that little child. So she got his name and stuff, and she set him up where he was going to meet her youngest daughter, which was the same age as her godson. And once the man came to the park, she beat him down. She beat him, and she blanked out, and she winded up killing him. They gave her 21 years to life. She's going on 29, I think it's 29 years now. And I think that's unfair, because I would have did the same thing, honestly, if somebody would have did that to my daughter, one of my nieces, or my godson. I would have did the same thing if the courts didn't help. But yet still, when you do something to try to avoid the situation before it gets out of control, the system fails us. And that's the bottom line. And I feel that if they would really look at domestic violence and learn more about it, that goes for the judge, the DAs, if they really get a better understanding of it. I don't think we should get that much time. And we get a lot of time. I'm not trying to be funny, and I know that there are men that do get abused by their partner, but when you really look at their whole picture, it's more women, and they getting younger and younger. Some of them is like 16, 17, 18 years old, and they're getting killed by their abuser, and nobody's really looking at it. And when you do something to protect yourself against your abuser, whether you man or female, you go into jail. And that's the bottom line. And I really think that that's unfair, because you have a lot of women that's locked up, and they've been fighting to either bring their time down, to get life taken off the back of their sentence, and it doesn't work. So, I really want to help the women and even the men, that's locked up for unfair justice, because that's what I call it,
When you got clemency, in our conversations that we've had since you've come home, you said that a lot of people weren't applying for clemency because it was so much work, it's so much paperwork, it's so much going back through and digging. When you got clemency, did people feel more hopeful, or did people still feel like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to dig through this?
Well, a lot of people still don't want to do it, and I can't really blame them, because some of them done been in there, they did either half of their time already, or they did all of their numbers and still got that life on the back. And a lot of times when you're locked up with a lot of time like that, you feel hopeless, because I know I did. I said, when I got sentenced to my time, the first thing I said, it was a guard, a court officer there that was there through the whole thing, and she used to come in the back every time I went to court, and she used to tell me, she said, "Miss Seeley, don't give up. It's not over." She said, "Because you know what, honestly, I would have did the same thing." She said, "You had all the paper trail, and it's wrong what they doing to you." So when I lost trial and I got sentenced to that, and they was remanding me, taking me back to the back, I looked at my mother, my daughter, my grandson. He was a baby. And I looked at them, and the first thing I said is that I know what I have to do. And the court officer, she heard me, and she was like, "Miss Seeley, what are you going to do?" I said, "I know what I have to do, because I can't do this time. I'm not built for this." And my thought was going back while I was waiting for them to pick me up, to take me back to Rikers. What my thought was is to just take my belt and just commit suicide, because I knew I wasn't built for the prison, and I knew I couldn't do it. And she told me, she said, "Miss Seeley, don't do anything like that, because it's not really over." I said, "What do you mean it's not over? I got 19 to life. I am 47. I believe I was 47 years old then." I said, "There's no way that I'm going to do this time. There's no way that I'm strong enough to do this kind of time. I can't." I said, "I might as well end my life." I said, "Better yet, I should have just let him kill me." I said, "Because if he would have killed me, I wonder if the DA would have fought that hard for my family to get justice, you know." But that's the way I felt. And they put me on suicide watch. When I first got locked up in 98, they had me on suicide watch, because every day I thought of ways to end my life. But I had to snap out of it, because I had to look at my mother and my daughter, because my son had just got killed in 97. So I had to look at the fact that if I do that, that's another painful situation to go through for my family. And, I was like, okay, it's over as far as you coming home, but at least you get to see your moms, your daughter, your family, your friends. Look at all the people that's fighting for you and still fighting for you. So I had to think about that. And I realized that that would have been selfish, but I did. A lot of times I tried it, but it didn't work, but I'm glad that I made it through it. Okay.
And what would you say if you were able to speak directly to Governor Cuomo about the need to commute the sentences of other domestic violence survivors that are still in prison?
First, I would tell him thank you for granting me clemency, and I really appreciate him giving me a second chance. But then I would tell him, listen, this is what you should do, Governor Cuomo. Look at a lot of these women cases that's locked up in there for domestic violence, and how every time they go up for parole, the parole board hits them. Please look at their case and grant them clemency, because a lot of them shouldn't be in there for that long length of time. Okay, everybody know when you do something wrong, yes, you have to go to prison. You have to do a little bit of time, but 19, 25, 30 years, and no, that's a lot of time. That is a lot of time, and I would ask them to please look at the women that's in there and, consider giving them clemency. Give them a chance too. They deserve a second chance. Everybody deserves a second chance, I feel. So I would ask them to, really look at it and give them a second chance. Because a lot of women that's in there, some of them, they watch their kids grow up in prison. They didn't have a chance to be a mother to their kids. They were snatched away from their kids when they was babies. So they trying to do the best that they can, being locked up in prison. But it's nothing like your mother being there for you. You know, when you're sick, when you're going through something, it's nothing like having a mother's love. And I feel that they should have a second chance, and I hope and pray that before Governor Cuomo comes out of office, that he would really consider it and let a lot of other women go. Okay. Yeah.
So we're going to open it up for questions with a couple of caveats. You do not get to ask about Valerie's crime and why she was arrested and incarcerated. If you ask that question, I will yell at you. So let us make that clear right now. She also reserves the right to not answer questions that don't make her comfortable. So with those two caveats, are there questions? The question was, can you talk about some of the advocacy and some of the interviews that you've been doing since you've come home, and even before you came home?
Okay. Well, while I was locked up, I was working with WPA, which is Women's Prison Association, and I was telling them a lot of things. Every time they came, I had a whole mouthful full to tell them about the way the system was and what was happening to the girls as far as the correctional officers beating women up, stomping them down. So I was able to get this information out, and through Sister Mary Nerney, every time she came to have to give us updates on what was happening with the domestic violence law, I was telling her things like, listen, I seen this, and this officer really injured this inmate, and something needs to be done. And so I was working with them from, I think from 2006, you know, when they come in. And it was, a lot of women was actually scared to talk to them. They didn't want to open up. But me, I'm not scared. Because when I see something, I say something, and especially if I know that it's wrong, and I've seen a lot. And since I've been out, I'm still working with Women's Prison Association. I work with Gail Smith. Anisha, right, Anisha, which is right there. Me and her are good friends, and I've been hooked up with them. I did also, I did a live interview in January of this year through Gail Smith, who is another friend of mine. She's hooked up with WPA and Osborne Correctional Association. Okay. So I've been working real close with them, and Vicki is a real good friend of mine, and she, you know, it's just been great. And I'm going to continue to do this work because I really, really, really want people to realize that, okay, I got granted clemency and I'm happy. But what about the other women that's in there right now and they fighting for their freedom? I want help for them. I want things to change. I want a better medical staff in there to really meet people's needs. They have people that are really, really have a mental problem, and the way that they treat them is wrong. It's wrong, and something needs to be done. So I'm asking everybody here that if, by hearing my story, I'm asking y'all to please help these women that's in prison right now and really stand up and fight for them, because, like I said, I just have a lot of people fighting for me as far as my family, my friends, and different organizations, but a lot of women don't have that. So it's time for us to really stand up and fight for these women, fight for their freedom, fight for a better condition in prison, and more trained officers. Okay.
I mean, if you're comfortable answering this, I just wondered how it was that the domestic violence organizations that you reached out to failed to help you. Like, what specifically were their failures? And in your experience, what resources do people in that situation need?
Okay, they didn't fail to help me. My mother contacted them the day after New Year's. She couldn't do it on New Year's Day because everything was closed. So the day after New Year's, my mother contacted them, and they came to court with me every court day. The lawyer that they gave me, not Steps to End Family Violence, but the court appointed me a lawyer who was not a domestic violence lawyer. So with Steps to End Family Violence, they had law students from John Jacob College? John Jay College. And one of the students, he already passed the bar. He was just waiting to get his paperwork, and the other one was waiting to take his bar exam. But they went to college for domestic violence because they was becoming domestic violence lawyers. And even with the help that Steps to End Family Violence was giving my lawyer and getting him these law students, my lawyer, I'm not trying to be funny, but he thought he knew everything, and he didn't want to take the advice of them and them telling him, this is how you should do this. Say this, you know. He went on the Eagle trip, and he was patting himself on the back like, I got this, I got this. And I'm like looking at him. Everything that I told my lawyer that I had, the DA was saying there was no record. It took two and a half years after I was locked up and came home through another judge. She let me go in 2000 in my own recognizance once she did a background check on me, and she was like, she never been in trouble in her life, you know. But anyway, so when we went to trial, my lawyer, he did good in some parts, but deep down inside, I knew I was going to go to prison for a long time because he kept messing up. And he wouldn't take their advice, so it wasn't Steps. They was fighting for me the whole time, but my lawyer wouldn't listen.
And I think also one of the questions that Natsumi was referencing was when you called the domestic violence organization when you were still in the relationship and they told you that they couldn't help you, like what needed to happen for you to be able to not be in that situation anymore?
Well, that's where I was confused at, because I know there's a lot of domestic violence programs out there, and a lot of them have vans or cars if a woman is in a real abusive relationship and she's scared for her life. I know for a fact that they would tell them, get to a destination area where you feel safe and we call us back and we'll come and get you. That wasn't the case with me. No matter, I called three different times, and I told them, I am scared for my life. This man is trying to kill me. I cannot sleep. Every time I go to sleep, I wake up, and he's standing over me trying to put something around my neck or either strangle me, suffocate me. And you know what they told me? Oh, we can't help you. What do you mean you can't help me? I couldn't understand that. She said, well, if you can't get to us, we can't help you. So I'm like, okay, so I'm supposed to stay here and let this man kill me? And she said, well, I'm sorry, but unless you can get to us, we can't help you. So I hung up. I thought it was crazy. I thought I was hearing things. And I called back. I got a recording. I left my name my address and everything, and I was crying on the phone, and I was like, listen, I need help. I am scared for my life. Nobody never called me back. So when I called back again, I got somebody else, and I told her the same thing. I am scared for my life. This man is going to kill me. I need help. I need a safe place. The lady told me the same thing. The same thing. So I didn't know what else to do.
Thank you so much, Valerie and Vicki. I'm wondering, from your experience, what percentage would you say, just from being there and surviving it, of the other life or people doing long terms that you were doing your time with, what percentage would you say have some connection to support and advocacy on the outside, either family members who are really fighting or groups, and then the second part would be, what do you think would be the most helpful thing for those people who don't have that support?
Then that's when, okay, me, I'm going to continue to fight for them, because I know a lot of them don't have the support, have nobody to help them, you know. So I'm going to continue. My goal is to fight for the women in there and to try to get them free as soon as possible, and to get this domestic violence law changed where, okay, like I said, I know I committed a crime, but with the paper trail that a lot of women have, there's no way that the system should fail us like that and give us that kind of time. So what difference does it make if we have the paper trail or not, if we're going to get that kind of time and they're going to overlook it? And then when it's like, okay, lock them up, throw away the key. You know, and that's not being fair. So the women that don't have that kind of support system and don't have nobody fighting for them, they got me, because I'm going to continue to fight, because I want to see this. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I know eventually I will make it up to Albany, to the Senate, in front of the Senate or the state legislature, and I'm going to tell my story, and somebody is bound to listen. And that's where my goal is now. So I'm asking all of y'all that's listening to my story, please help me make this a reality for the women in there. You even have young girls that went through the abuse of their abuser, and they're in prison. They haven't even begun their life yet. Their life has been snatched away from them because of the simple fact nobody helped them. So now they sitting in prison at a young age, 18, 19, come on, they haven't even lived yet. But what was they supposed to do in that kind of situation? So I'm asking everybody in here is to please stand up. Help me make this live where somebody is going to listen. Help me do this. That's what my goal is, and I'm going to continue to fight.
You were inside for almost 18 years, and then you were released into the community, but they had to find a place for you. You had to kind of navigate after being away for so long. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been doing since you came home, and also what are the things that are hard for you now that you are back after having been inside for so long?
Okay, it's still scary, even though I've been home for a year and 2 months, almost 3. It's still scary. It's still a lot of things that's really stressful. Like, I can't be in a crowd, a real crowded place with a lot of people. And if I see cops, and like, I don't go to Grand Central Station, I don't go to the Penn Station, because it's always cops with these big guns. So I have an anxiety attack and a panic attack, and I freeze up. You know, but other than that, when I came home, it was really weird, because it was the first time of me actually saying, oh, even though I'm on parole, I still get to go to the store, I still get to walk and stuff. I didn't want to really go nowhere, and as far as getting on the train, I was like, I'm not getting on the train. I'm not getting on the train. There's too many people. It's too crowded. I am not getting on the train. But in order for me to take care of the stuff that I had to do as far as being on parole, I had to take that step and ride the train. And yes, a lot of times I had to get off because it was too crowded and I was having a panic attack. And I got on the phone and I called my probation officer and I said, can you please come and get me? She was like, where are you at? I said, I'm stuck on 42nd Street and I'm not coming out the train station. She was like, Miss Seeley, you gotta come out. I said, no, I don't. You gotta come and get me. You know, so I ran into this girl that I know, and she was like, Miss Seeley, what you doing standing there? I said, because I'm not going upstairs. She said, where you going? I said, I gotta go to parole. My parole officer don't want to come and see me. She said, come on. I said, okay. And I looked at her, I said, just don't leave me, please, because I'm gonna be stuck. So we went to parole, and my parole officer, she said, Miss Seeley, you really thought I was gonna come and get you? I said, how else was I gonna get here? I was right up the block in the train station. But it took a while for me to get used to it, and being able to walk as a free person and wear what I want to wear, that's a great feeling. Because nothing but green in there. And I'm still getting used to it, but I'm getting better as far as the trains is concerned. So now that I have my bearings, right, and because I know what trains to take, all you got to do is let me know where I'm going, what train is close to there, and I'll get on the train if I have to. I'll just be like, listen to my music and talk myself down when I feel myself getting an anxiety attack. But it's great.
So I think we're almost out of time, so do you have any last closing thoughts before we...
So could y'all please help fight for the women in there, and let's get this thing on the road, and let's all of us go up to Albany, okay? And let's talk to these people. Let's try to get Governor Cuomo to change the domestic violence law, because this domestic violence law that they've been trying to get passed for over 20-something years, it's enough. Enough is enough, and we really need to get this passed before we lose any more, or somebody else wind up going through the same situation that I've been through. So I'm asking, please help me do this. Thank you.